We've got the thumb screws, the foot crusher, the nose hooks, those long rods you run up the... Oh, wait, where's the dwarf?
Here, my lord.
Ah, good. Right, let's go. Come on.
Archbishop?
Hell.
Going somewhere?
Yes.
Where?
Canterbury? That was terrible, wasn't it? In 134 episodes of prog, we've never been to Canterbury. People must be surprised that we got this far without doing any Canterbury scene bands at all. I think the nearest we got was actually the Bill Bruford solo thing we did.
Oh, right.
One of a kind. Had Dave Stewart on it from National Health and Egg. Yeah, so it's a subset of the late 60s, the early 70s, the prog, as we know it. It's psychedelia and jazz. It has a very jazzy thing, and it's cool because it's a real sort of contradiction of the po-faced jazzos. Serious music. We're making serious music here, and the sort of clueless silliness of psychedelia, where they're just making woo noises, and and obviously all these different bands they go from one extreme to the other or somewhere in between and become listenable or not based on that. And Steve Hillage, like I said, Dave Stewart, Robert Wyatt, it's all those kind of people. Soft Machine, Gong, Caravan, National Health. Not all the bands are actually from Canterbury, apparently. So I suspect it's like a London-centric thing. So they're from around there somewhere, that's not in London. But we know what it means now, I suppose is the point. Everyone knows Canterbury is a thing, and it's distinct from the other bands, I think. But I mean, the question of why we've not done it before, one is Sam doesn't like jazz, generally. And yes, it's a bit of an unknown with this stuff, I don't really know. But also that I'm not really that knowledgeable. It is shocking how few Canterbury albums I own. So that's a thing. But yeah, for me, Soft Machine are the one. They're the one to go for first. And particularly this album is the fulcrum which you start with to go delve deeper. And I mean, the other thing is that Soft Machine were involved in the London, very trendy London scene of the 67 time, playing the UFO Club and all that kind of stuff. I think you can compare them with where Pink Floyd went and where they went, and how it's completely different. You can certainly say for a lot of the Canterbury bands, that there's lots of playing. It's playing. The albums of musicians playing their music, playing, jamming, soloing. Very little songwriting. There is some, obviously, in some bands, and etc., but that's generally the thing. So it leans toward fusion and all that stuff, except it's very British. And obviously that thing with Pink Floyd started in the same place as Soft Machine, just making silly noises, and went in a completely different direction because through necessity they had to become songwriters. Roger Waters had to become a songwriter because he wasn't a bass player, and obviously. Well, financially, it was good. That's an interesting thing, This album as well, the third. It's called Third. So it is actually the third album. It'd be good if it wasn't. I think that the Travelling Wilburys, actually the second album, is called Volume 3, which I think that's great. Though actually, I think there's an outtakes album which is Volume 2, but I don't know if that was a joke or what. I don't know. And that's the so here we see the direction they're going in from the way Pink Floyd changed from making silly noises to something completely different. They went into jazz. Nice. And strangely, that was a commercial move. And that was because what the record company was asking for, because that was what was in vogue. That was because they could. That was the direction they went in. People say the post Bitches Brew thing. And apparently, this is only a few months after Bitches Brew. I don't really hear that. I mean, it must be an influence, and I suppose it's such a huge thing on all of that music that it has to be there. But I don't really hear it. I hear very early King Crimson, and I hear late 60s Zappa, King Kong, and all that stuff. That's what I hear. Nothing at all like any era of Pink Floyd. So already they're nothing like Pink Floyd whatsoever. No link there at all. So again, it's a double again. I tempted fate by saying we didn't do many double albums, do we? We'll do another double. But again, it's just because it's lots of playing. It can't possibly be supposed to be one listen. Although actually I listened to it this morning, but I know it very well. So but 75 minutes, it's 4 things that you listen to separately, I think. Not one massive thing. That challenges our format as well, because the 1 week thing, that either the idea is it's an album where I know it really well and Sammy's new to it, he's listened to it for 1 week, or both of us have had 1 week to listen to it. That's kind of the idea of our show, isn't it? So this challenges that because it's so long, and it's something that needs to. Often it's something you put on in the background, and then you get to know and all that stuff, and that's not necessarily something that's going to have happened. But yeah, like I said, I'm wondering whether you're like this or not. I think either you'll think it's horrible or you'll think it's pretty cool, and I think the viewers will too. Some proper avant-garde stuff, and that's probably my favourite bits of the album. Some nicely written bits which are really listenable. Some of it is much more conservative, so there's moments when they're going completely out there with noises and stuff, and there's moments where they are jazzing, and they're playing the jazzing, which is great as well, but they are jazzing.
Kev likes this album. So this is the fulcrum from whence we delve deeper.
Into Canterbury.
Right, I'm going to put you out your misery, yeah. No, I'm not.
Is it saxophone noises?
Wow, I love the bit where they're dicking about with the organ at the beginning.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. And then when they introduce the vocals in Moon in June, fantastic. Not. I mean, this just sounds like a lot of improv, yeah, which I presume is Facelift is a live track. Am I right?
Sort of. This is the thing. It's actually loads of live stuff they've recorded, and then they mess with it, and they're spliced, and they've put things backwards and all that kind of thing.
Right. It did take me a long time because, as you say, this is a long thing. I was flipping out. When's this going to end? I'm on track 2.
Yeah, it's 4 songs, and it's 75 minutes long.
It took me a while to get through it, and I have to admit I was quite tired. My initial thought was, this is exactly the kind of music we're quite happy to ignore if it was playing in the background at a restaurant. Mm-hmm. And it would fulfill a sense of self-satisfaction that, I'm in a restaurant that plays this kind of jazzy crap.
Yeah, but you wouldn't actually listen to it.
I wouldn't actually listen to it. And I was actually genuinely getting quite angry at one point because
so was it the jazzing or was it the crazy stuff?
It's the noodling. Sometimes the Canterbury scene, particularly, sort of my experience is gong. They have to introduce some kind of wind instrument, which just doesn't sound very musical at all, and it just sounds like a lot of very simple sort of motifs with noodling over the top of some type.
Yeah, because it's all about the modes, isn't it?
Yeah, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Which all comes, kind of from Kind of Blue. Yeah. Not Bitches Brew, actually, all the way back to Kind of Blue, this modal.
But, I like kind of avant-garde music. There is avant-garde music that I like. Yeah. And it's very difficult to define with avant-garde what works and what doesn't, but I definitely got the impression that this doesn't work in its most avant-garde, because it didn't sort of elicit any kind of emotion. It was more, well, that sounds a bit weird, or, the discussion didn't seem to be between the band and someone listening to it as a piece of music appreciation. It was more like a commentary to other musicians, which I have this issue with.
That's the criticism of fusion, isn't it? That it's musicians playing, they're playing, and it's them playing. There is the playing we played. There's no songs really, and there's a bit of composition, but really that means written the motif and then soloed.
Yeah, but after having done Captain Beefheart a couple of weeks ago, and then to be I honestly didn't know what you were dropping on me here.
That's the thing I didn't know either. This was a real unknown, this one.
And then, actually, there are parts which are quite enjoyable after you manage to tune out the
rest of it.
The rest of it and chew your food or whatever.
Well, I thought that because there's a lot of different things on there. So there's bits when they're jazzing. There's ridiculous, silly avant-garde bits. There's some really cool things. There's a backwards bit at the start of track 4, which is really cool. Actually, bit at the end of it as well.
Out-Bloody-Rageous was the track that sort of worked for me. And sort of after I heard that, I kind of thought, well, that's not bad, but does it justify, the
jazzing in the middle?
Yeah. And the vocals are just
terrible,
awful. Yeah, absolutely awful.
Unbelievably bad.
I don't know who they're trying to appeal to. I cannot believe that actually sounds good to their ears.
There's this question: are they actually taking it seriously? I really don't know. Does humour belong in music? Maybe is the question. They didn't even record that part you're talking about, the vocal bit on Moon in June. They didn't even record it properly. It sounds like he's showing them this song he's written and they're just playing along with it. Like, this is what how the song goes. And that's the recording. And it turns out there was a demo of that about 2 years before 1968. And the rest of the band couldn't be bothered to play on it. It's Rob Wyatt doing all the parts himself. So that's overdubbed parts. And it's all over the place. So there's a humour there and there's a psychedelia there, probably going back to their earlier stuff, and it is funny. So I suppose that's the album, but it does beg the question. I don't really know where on the humour scale, or are they not taking it? Are they taking the piss a bit, or I'm not really completely sure. But it did. I mean, echoes of early Genesis. I thought actually, although it's all out of tune and whatever, and it's their last song with lyrics.
I can see why.
But that whole track is like that apparently. In that most of it is just Robert Wyatt doing all the parts, and I think Mike Rattledge is on part 2. Some of the bass isn't him, but basically it's Robert Wyatt solo track doing all the tracks. I like the third part though of Moon in June. It's like the part 2 is just jazzing, but part 3 there's a drone stuff going on, and the violin was recorded separately. Without that music playing, that's a Zappa thing of sticking something else on top of something else and seeing what it sounds like, and it sounds like there's avant-garde things going on. It's actually just an experiment. That's the point on the album where there's almost some actual subtlety, I think, because so much of that. Sound quality's terrible. There's actual tape hiss at some points. I think it's stylistic. I think it's deliberate because I think maybe they are very aware of the very dry. Particularly with using woodwinds and not guitars, fusion stuff could be very muso-y, and they're trying to. It gives it an atmosphere of scary, weird stuff rather than just it's jazz, isn't it? And I think that works. I think it helps it tremendously. And like I said, it sounds live, and it is kind of live recordings of most of it, but it's actually splices of things and backwards things and all sorts of stuff like that.
But if you're going to do that, make it sound good.
That's really interesting. They start with the most extreme part of the album, the most difficult, ridiculous. I kind of like that. It's interesting that rather than Tagamago was the opposite, and a very accessible thing at starting. It leads you into all this crazy stuff. It starts with the noises. I wonder if actually that would be some people's favourite bit of the album. I could understand that, but my favourite bits are the end of Moon in June. And the start and the end of Out-Bloody-Rageous as well.
Yeah.
They're really cool.
I'll probably agree with you there. It's probably a good sign that it's actually, those are the best bits.
Yeah, well the most interesting bits. And I think there's an element of, when the jazzing starts and first 2 tracks, I think this is great. But then by track 4, okay, it's back to playing that again. Let's just wait for it to finish. To be honest, there's an element of that. And that's coming from someone who really likes that kind of stuff. So, it's like the gaps are filled in with just some jazzing and there's interesting things around it. I mean, track 2 is very straightforward actually, slightly all the time. And it reminds me of the 71-72 King Crimson when they started playing what they weren't supposed to play and supposedly Robert Fripp refused to play along with them, although I haven't heard any evidence that he actually did. I think he did play along with them. It's very much that kind of thing, Sun Ra and that kind of stuff, But when they get scary and heavy, that's what I really like. And actually track 2, when they go back into it at the end, there's this scary heavy riff. I really like that. Armageddon, end of the world, oh my god, scary. So yeah, I mean it sounds like I've been quite critical of it, I think, because obviously I've kind of agreed with your assessment of it in a sense, but I really like this album. I've had it for many years. It's another one I got when we were at school. Actually, you can see it's one of those old CDs with the white like that and the rubbish printed, that kind of thing. And of course, as a kid, 17-year-old, it seemed really heavyweight, obscure, extreme music. But I really like it, I mean, it's not, the silliness of the first 2 albums, the psychedelia and all that, is gone really. And this has more depth or whatever it is, but it's still groovy as well. There's a groove to what the bass is doing and all that, and it's just in the right place. I mean, there's bits that sound like the Doors, I think. So I think it's seen as an access point. It's seen as a bit. Rolling Stone will list it in the all-time 10 prog albums that you're allowed to listen. These are the ones you're allowed to listen. And that will be in there. I think it's recognised as that.
Surely that's to stop people listening to prog.
Possibly. Yeah.
I mean, you can come completely green. You know, say you don't really listen to prog, and you put that on. I mean, you're not gonna. Oh, that's nice.
What lovely sounds. Yeah, but I think it's if you're looking for that, you're looking for something extreme, you're looking for something different. You know, so a kid of 17 is bored of Coldplay. He's looking for something out there, and it is. I think that's stylistically deliberate. I think they're very aware of what they're doing, and that this is an album which took them worldwide. They were never massive, obviously, but it's a cult classic kind of thing. It's definitely an album all prog fans should own. It's a moment in prog. I think 4 eggs from it. I don't think it's 5 eggs. It's 4 eggs from it. Yeah.
4 eggs?
4 whole eggs for all those noises.
It actually made me angry, Kev. I was like, I can't give it anywhere near that. I'm going to give it... What did I give B part? 1 egg?
Yes, because it was something that existed that was special.
2 eggs.
2 eggs, there you go. That's cool.
Well, what are we doing next?
Next is 5th. We're doing 3rd, 5th and bundles. Okay, so don't ask for other albums. The point is they're all different. Yeah. So although there isn't much to say about each album, at least we're doing something very different each time. And we don't necessarily know where that's going to go each time.
Yeah. 5th is their sellout album where they start doing music that sounds normal.
That's not that far from. Well, we'll find out next week. See you soon.